I want to show you guys how to make this single den into a double den. And these are some of the things that I'm going to use. You have to cut some metal out to get it to work. You also have to weld some stuff onto the bracket, like I said, to get it to work. And then you're going to have to use some Bondo and some filler, fill in the tray. And then you're going to have to take a piece of leather. You're going to have to sand it down and make it work. And I'm going to show you how to do it step by step. This den, or the single den, it's going to have a lighter here. It's going to have a lighter here. And then you're going to have that tray. It's going to come down there. And then you're going to have 2 screws. What you want to do is you want to leave some of it, but you're going to have to cut some of it out, right? So the screw holes work. You're going to have to leave the back of the tray. So you have to leave some of the tray in, but you have to cut some of the tray out. You see that? And what's in here is fiberglass Bondo and regular Bondo. Because I'm changing my double den setup out, I'm gonna end up adding more Bondo in this area here. And then I'm gonna sand it down smooth so that it'll fit. And I'm gonna show you what the radio looks like right now in the car. Is this a piece of metal in here that goes across from side to side. You're gonna have to cut that piece of metal out, and you're gonna have to cut it down to there. The cigarette lighter sits there. You have to cut all of that out. I saw a guy who kept his cigarette lighter, but if you do that, then you have to get your double den too high up to the top of the AC, and I kind of don't want to do that. So here, check this out. I'm just gonna fit it in, and this is how it's gonna sit. It's pretty snug. So all I gotta do is Bondo that in, and I'm also gonna have to Bondo a little piece here. So I'm gonna fill that in too. And then I'm gonna sand it down so that it fits right at the edge of the radio. And then it'll look like it actually fits in there. All right, one of the things I'm gonna tell you is before it dries, what you wanna do is take the tape off. It makes it easy to take the tape off because the Bondo hadn't totally set up. So since the Bondo hadn't totally set up, you can rip the tape right off. Just like that. A little bit of Bondo comes off, but it's still all set up. And you can see how it's filled in. I'll probably fill it in a little bit more in the back, but since I'm gonna cover this with like a leather, you're not even gonna be able to tell. So I'm gonna sand it down, I'm gonna paint it smooth, get it all tight, and then I'm gonna cover it with leather. I'm gonna leave these bolts out, so although I'm gonna glue it down, you'll still have access to these bolts, because I'm gonna use like this Gorilla Glue, and then you're just gonna flop it down after you screw these in. This is another step closer towards getting to the goal. All right, I put a little bit more mud on it. It's pretty flat. It's drying up nicely. I'm gonna get those edges really cut in sharp. That's sort of why I kind of left it a little bit round over here, but I'm gonna cut that edge in sharp. Get that right in there real nice. And I'm gonna sand everything down. You can tell when your Bondo is ready because it'll get soft just like this. You see how it is? It'll get nice and soft and it won't be sticky. And that's how you know when it's ready. So I'm about to rip that Band-Aid off the back. I'm gonna let it sit for a while. Once it sets up and gets hard, it'll probably take a day. I'll come back, sand it down, then I'll hit it with the little touch-up red, and then I'll paint it, and then it should be right in there. I got the den coming with the bezel, so we're gonna see how that looks. Then I'll show you the whole putting it all together. I'm not gonna show you all the wiring. You're gonna have to learn that shit yourself. Anyway, but I'll show you this part. This is the easy part. Got my fan. Got a couple of discs, an 80 grit. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sand this down. So one of the things I'm gonna tell you is when you're doing this, you need to make sure you get a really good respirator. I'm gonna come back. See, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna vacuum this area up, and then I'm gonna proceed to fitting everything in, trying to use this sander to create the edges so that it's nice and flat and flush, so that the bezel can fit in there, because the bezel came in the mail today, along with the a new holder. So this is the holder, and let me go get the bezel real quick. And this is the bezel. What I'll do is I'll clip a little link to Amazon, where basically I got this in this bezel for this Pioneer radio. If you have made it this far in my video, please like and subscribe. Alright, so here I got the bezel that's going to go around the air conditioning system. Here I got the AC unit with the bracket, and this right here is my head unit. Well, that's self-explanatory. So what we're going to try to do is see how we can get this to fit up flush with this. Right now, I have too much material on this bottom piece, so the radio isn't quite fitting in there snug. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work the bottom piece until I can actually fit it in there. This is the bezel for the radio, okay? And the bezel for the radio is a little loose with this bracket here. This bracket here, I'm trying to move the radio over so that it's centered in there. And it's going to take some modification, because right now I modified this so it'll work, but I'm gonna change the way this is all set up. All right. So how this is set up on this side, holding this in, holding the bezel in so the radio will fit in. I'm gonna change how all of that fits inside of here so that it'll all work and it'll all work together. I got it all apart. The inside bracket that holds the AC unit and all of that stuff together. Now you see how there's nothing connecting from one side to another. This is what basically the radio bracket looks like. You gotta cut this in order for your double din to actually fit in place. All right. Then what you also have to do is you have to move these over. So you're gonna have to separate it a little bit so that it can hold the bracket in place. Right now, it's not gonna work in this configuration. So I'm gonna have to bend this top bracket in order to accommodate this double din plate. So all I want to do is just get this to fit right in. See? So get this to fit in here like that, and it's gonna be pretty sweet. I'm gonna weld a little tack weld up here. I'm gonna tack it here and tack it here. It should work. Just remember, you don't need a welder to complete this phase of getting the bracket attached to the radio din. You can just use screws or glue or anything else, but you just want it to be stable. So just a couple of tack welds. Looks pretty good. Tack weld's a little bit funky, but because I burnt through, I had to heat up too high. Wire brush. Come back. Fix them later. So it's pretty much in there solid. I might set a couple of more tack welds. Now, this is the bracket that I tack welded in on the sides. Remember, I cut this lower bracket off, and it's also a lower bracket. The lighter goes, okay? So you got to cut this bracket as well, down. You need to leave these tabs right here. You see those? You need to leave those tabs because that's what screws the lower bezel in. Now this is the lower bezel. I modified it. I cut it out. I put a lot of mud on it so I could cut it and so it will fit up flush. So watch. Once I put it in, it's almost right. Right? It's almost right. It's got some small gaps, and I gotta put some screws in it to make sure it's all lined up. But this is the other bezel. That bezel fits right here. It's all fit. It's got some little gaps on it, but I think when I screw the top in, it'll fill those gaps up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place the radio inside of this holder, and then I'm gonna see what it looks like with the radio in, the bezel around, and everything. All right, move back up off of it. So it's in, the bezel is in, it's real close. All of it looks good. I'm gonna sand it down a little bit and I'm gonna paint it so the ashtray kind of covered these two screw holes up. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cover it with a piece of leather. So I'm gonna paint it, cover it with a piece of leather, and you're not even gonna be able to tell that this thing was modified when I'm done with it. I cut this piece of leather material. It's gonna fit in here. I'm gonna glue some of it in. Then this bezel is gonna fit in there and it's gonna lock the leather in the channel, creating a nice seal. Screws underneath it, and that should complete this whole thing. The material that I use, this is a leather material. I think I got this from where did I get this leather from? I got a piece of this leather from Joann's Fabric. And I cut a piece out. I kind of cut the ends off so it can be tucked in there, so it can look pretty neat. I'm using this Gorilla Glue spray to adhere it, but I'm also not putting enough on there, kind of leaving this a little bit dry because I need to get to those screws. So once I screw it in and I get it all set, then it'll be all good. Now this is my radio. I glued this in. That looks a little bit sloppy, so I'm probably gonna have to spray paint that to try to get it to look less gluey, because right now the glue's still a little bit dry, but it's gonna dry white, and I don't quite like the way that'll look, so I'm gonna have to clean that up. But it's all gonna look pretty good. It's the DIN. This is the bezel. Once I got it all together, I did the wiring in the car for the radio, and I'm probably I'm gonna show you this. This is an 86 300ZX, but I put the 89 tail lights on it. What I didn't do is I didn't put the key in the 89 tail lights. Now, so what I'm thinking about doing is cutting the plastic out of the keyhole and putting a camera in there for the backup camera. Instead of putting it on my tag down there, I think I'm gonna put it in a little keyhole. I don't use the keyhole to open up the trunk anyway, so I think that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna route all that wiring in there, and it's gonna be pretty sweet. I think it's gonna look pretty sick to have the backup, the rear view camera in that location. I got it in there. I turned the light on so you can see any of the imperfections with the radio or the bezel or anything like that. But it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. It's tucked in. I gotta tuck that in better on the side. Let me do that. See how it's not tucked in. So look, it looks straight. Can't tell that it's done. Looks good. That's how you install a double DIN radio in a Z31, guys. In the Z31.